What lies ahead for Zimbabwe's tourism industry following the country's recent controversial elections? This week on Fast Track, we're at the Victoria Falls in Zimbabwe, where Michelle Yanachan investigates whether the tourist dollar is flowing as fast. Plus, from dying village to agro-tourism pioneer, how one man's love for Kalapanaiotis is transforming tourism in the mountains of Cyprus. And
the sites that claim to see into the future of hotel prices and the app that points to Mecca at 30,000 feet. That's Online Check-In later in the programme.
Hello and welcome to Fast Track. I'm Fiona Foster. Now, it was once a star performer in Africa's tourism industry, but over the past 15 years, Zimbabwe has endured some tough times. Last month, 89-year-old President Robert Mugabe was inaugurated for another term in office, and the country is redoubling its efforts to demonstrate that it's a secure, safe and enticing place to visit. Michelle Yanachan has travelled to Victoria Falls to look into the country's attempts to court that all-important tourism dollar.
The
mighty Zambezi. This river forms the natural boundary between Zimbabwe and Zambia and may be best known for the point where it plummets over 100 metres.
Victoria Falls is one of the world's great natural wonders. It's also Zimbabwe's top tourist attraction and often a highlight for people coming to the country.
Known locally as Mosi Oatunya, the smoke that thunders, many believe the falls are best seen from the Zimbabwean side, particularly in the dry season. Yet there's been limited tourism growth on this side of the border during what's been a turbulent period of Zimbabwe's history. In 2000, the government of President Mugabe began forcibly seizing white-owned farms. That action severely disrupted the agriculture-based economy. There were food shortages and paralysing hyperinflation, sparking the use of foreign currencies.
Before 2008, this was the currency, and this was one of the last notes to be used, a 50 billion Zimbabwean dollar note. Now it's just a souvenir for tourists, which you can pick up for $1 US.
Since those days, when a wheelbarrow of banknotes might buy a loaf of bread, economic prospects have been improving.
Tourism is an important sector in terms of driving the Zimbabwean economy, so it's not wrong to try and promote tourism. The problem is they need to fix the things that are affecting tourism.
In July's elections this year, President Mugabe declared a landslide victory, beginning a 7th term in office. Britain, the US and the European Union are citing evidence of vote rigging. South Africa and the African Union endorsed the outcome, and the United Nations World Tourism Organization says the result is respected by its assembly. It held a recent conference in the country.
We're here about tourism. We're here about helping the people, about helping destinations. Let other people worry about politics.
The independent human rights group UN Watch calls the decision a disgraceful show of support. Zimbabwe is the last country that should be legitimised by a UN summit of any kind. While some tourists stay away, there are others who choose to come and even hope their visit will be a force for good.
I guess there is another way of looking at it. We are helping the country in a sense by being here. And hopefully some of the money spent will go to the right place, that is to the local people.
My view is that in the future, people will look back and see the 30 years. This just happened as a blip on the radar screen, and you know, things have changed. Going to keep changing.
And by hosting the United Nations gathering at Victoria Falls, Zimbabwe is clearly demonstrating a desire to be on the tourism radar again. Zimbabwe has set some ambitious targets in terms of tourist numbers and tourism revenue. It says it's looking to the emerging economies of Brazil, Russia, India and China, as well as its domestic market to meet those goals.
We must also begin to create a middle class that can afford to go holidaying, because that is our only backup, sort of fallback position. If we get into situations where we are not in total agreement with the international source markets, as was the case in the last decade.
And there are already some locals exploring their own country.
It has changed a lot. I mean, to be able to come to a restaurant like we are here and sit and ask for something so basic as bread, or to say, can I have a cheese sandwich and not be told it doesn't have the cheese. You can have the ham but not the cheese. It just made life much easier. So it's more fun to travel now.
We kind of see a lot more tourists now coming through the city than before. And maybe it's a perception, but it's also that, you know, people from Zimbabwe are also trying to come back and, you know, see the changes in the country. So the leadership does not equate to what's actually really happening on the ground in Zimbabwe.
Zimbabwe has said they're making air connectivity a big priority, a key theme of the United Nations conference. During Zimbabwe's long period of estrangement and isolation, the country was dropped by some airlines, although others have started flying into the capital Harare in the last couple of years.
There is no way Africa can increase its portion of the global tourism cake without first promoting intra-African travel.
Another obstacle to travel is the need for complicated and high-priced visas, acutely felt at Victoria Falls. Many tourists want to see the falls from both sides of the Zambezi.
We believe that the new trend in international travel is when people visit a country, they want to visit a region as a whole. We want a uni-visa for the region to cut out all the red tape with visas. That if foreigners from other parts of the world apply for a visa to one country, that visa must apply to all countries in the region.
There are tough challenges ahead, but some locals are expressing hope, including lodge owner Ross Kennedy.
Well, the heydays were 95 to 99, and I can tell you hand on heart that by the middle of next year, by the middle of 2014, arrivals in Oak Falls and average room rates achieved will have met and indeed start to exceed those heydays of the mid-90s.
Whether Zimbabwe can mirror that trend across the country and sustain it will be in part down to the policies of President Mugabe.
Michelle Yanachan reporting from Zimbabwe. And do let us know what you think, especially if you live in the country. Our email address, as ever, is fasttrack@bbc.com. And we always welcome your feedback and comments on all our trips and adventures. Now though, let's have a look at what else has been making the headlines in the travel world across the globe this week.
French police are investigating a possible scam involving thousands of fake tickets for Paris's Louvre Museum. The museum was alerted after it found fake tickets were used on several occasions by Chinese tourists and guides during August. The Louvre, which houses the Mona Lisa, is one of the French capital's most visited sites and attracts some 9 million people a year. The rusty, twisty steel of Havana's unsightly old harbour are set for a major overhaul after a project to turn the polluted waterfront into a gleaming new tourist hub was announced. Authorities say they want the dock to become the new face of the historic district, packed with restaurants, cafes and parks for the use of the public.
Tokyo.
Tokyo is expected to see a boost in tourism after being named host city for the 2020 Olympic Games. The Japanese capital beat off competition from Madrid and Istanbul to hold the event. Tour operators have welcomed the news, saying the decision signifies the country is coping with the radioactive fallout from the Fukushima nuclear plant. And finally, supporters of Catalonia's independence from Spain have joined hands to form a 400-kilometre human chain across the region in support of their cause. Hundreds of thousands of people linked hands through some of the area's most iconic sites on Catalonia's National Day. Regional President Artur Mas has been urging Madrid to allow the region a referendum on independence in 2014.
Now you're up to date, it's time for a short break. But do stay with us, because coming up, Carmen Roberts will be here with all that's hip and happening in travel on the web and on your handset. And we're in Cyprus to hear how one man has breathed new life into his dying village. So don't go away.
I think in the whole neighborhood there was 2 old ladies and a lot of rats and snakes.
Hello, you're watching Online Check-In, your regular guide to what's weird, wacky and worthwhile in travel, on the web and on your handset. I'm Carmen Roberts. Now, don't you wish you had a crystal ball when it comes to booking hotel rooms, so you know when prices will go up or down? TheSweetest.com has what's called a hotel time machine, a feature that claims to tell you if the rates will rise or fall within the next month and the likelihood that the hotel will sell out. The founders of the site, a former banker and a former Microsoft engineer, say the prices aren't guaranteed and they won't offer refunds for faulty predictions. So clearly, they're not putting their money where their mouths are, but it could give you an idea of hotel price trends in the US. Sadly, this site is only for hotels in North America. But another site that's dabbling in so-called fortune-telling is Deal Angel, and it covers Canada, the US, Mexico, as well as Europe. When you initially book, the calendar is color-coded, so you know when prices are traditionally low or high. Once you've selected your dates, it will give you a price trend prediction using big data, telling you to hurry up. The rates for this arrival date are likely to increase significantly and book now. You can also sign up for email price alerts. But when it comes to accuracy, these predictions cover a city as a whole, not individual properties. And Deal Angel admits that it's only showing price trends and that predictions are less accurate the further out you look. If that's not sitting on the hotel fence, I don't know what is. If you've come across any other price prediction sites for other parts of the world, then let us know. The address, as always, is fasttrack@bbc.com. You can find us on Facebook too, and why not check out our tweets on Twitter. Well, one way to cut your hotel costs is to only stay a few hours. Fast Track viewer Nadia Swim Karim emailed to tell us about day-use hotels. This website and app claims to offer a second bed for weary travellers, a second office for the corporate road warrior, and a second life for those wanting a discreet rendezvous. You could say the Love Hotel concept is going corporate. Day Use claims to offer discounts of up to 70% on daytime-only rooms, but only at select hotels in the US and Europe. And here's another app that can get you to your hotel or anywhere else, all on public transport. I know, public transport is usually a hassle when you're on holiday, and it's so much easier to catch a cab. For me, buses are the worst because I've usually no idea where to get off. Well, with Move It, if you ride with the app open, it will send you live information about your trip, so you'll never miss that stop again. It works for buses, trains and subways in a number of cities around the world, including Australia, Russia and even Brazil, which could come in handy if you're heading to the World Cup next year. Rather annoyingly though, the open street maps don't work underground, but the free app will connect you again when you reach street level. Staying with apps, and here's one that claims to work at 30,000 feet. Crescent Trip is an in-flight prayer calculator, alerting Muslims when to pray and which direction they should face, even when they're on a plane. The Singapore-based app will even help you find halal food and prayer rooms at airports. Tweet of the Week time now, and Mashable has spotted a social media savvy boutique hotel in Sydney, Australia. The 1888 Hotel is an Instagram hotel. The lobby is awash with a revolving series of photos taken by guests. There's a space to snap yourself as you check in, and Instagram-using guests with over 10,000 followers get a free night's stay. If you happen to stay there, do let me know if you met any other guests, or if they were all too busy taking selfies and searching for hashtags. And finally, let me leave you with a stunning yet terrifying time-lapse video of the recent Sierra Nevada Rim fire that spread through Yosemite National Park. The park itself uploaded these eerie images. See you next time.
Thanks, Carmen. When John Papadouris returned to his childhood home in Cyprus after 10 years away in Dubai, he couldn't believe what he found. The village he grew up in had all but disappeared. He was determined to restore it to its former beauty, and his efforts were successful. So much so, in fact, that the government has now been inspired to try and do the same elsewhere in the Troodos region, as Theopis Skarlatos now reports.
When I was a kid, the village was very, very alive. I remember every man in the village, he was uncle this and uncle that, whether he was a real uncle or not. Everybody was an uncle. People would go to the cafe, the coffee shop in the evening. They used to make all their deals across the table. No contracts, nothing. That's how it was then.
For generations, many Cypriots have left the island to find their fortune on the Greek mainland or further afield. At the age of 18, John Papadouris also went in search of work overseas, leaving the village he'd grown up in. When Turkish forces invaded in 1974, a mass exodus of Greek Cypriots from the northern part of the island left villages close to the border like Kalopanayotis even more deserted and unloved.
The old village center, it was in shambles. It was abandoned, derelict. I think in the whole neighborhood there was 2 old ladies and a lot of rats and snakes.
Now though, after much hard work and nearly 10 million euros worth of European funding, life is being breathed back into Kalopanayotis.
These little walls we built here, it was one of our very first projects with the flowers we put on top. It was just a very first attempt to show that the village is getting some attention, it's getting upgraded.
And from flowers, the focus moved to houses, courtyards, coffee shops, and even buses, with the main idea being to keep the traditional style. With the country going through turbulent economic times and recently the recipient of a $13 billion bailout, the government are keen to use John's plans as a template for other deprived areas.
We hope that people will realize that by cooperating between each other, they will really have a more successful project in agro-tourism area.
Mr. Papadouris had a strategic vision for Kalopanayotis right from the start, but what really makes this village unique is the cooperation, the union that's been formed, the trust that's been made, and mostly the way the older community works together with the younger people here to keep a village that was once dying, thriving.
The project has created a number of jobs in an economy that's expected to contract almost 9% this year, its worst set of results since the mid-1970s.
I don't mind that I have to travel about 50 minutes to come at my work. I think I'm lucky to have job. So many people I know, they're in their search. They search for job, but they can't find.
Love the idea of refurbishing the village houses. Sounds like it's going to be very peaceful and quiet, and we just wanted to kind of log out for a week or two, and it seemed like the ideal place to come.
Yeah, it seemed like the perfect place to come and do absolutely nothing.
These are the mandores, the oranges I was telling you about.
And this is where you spend most of your time then when you're here in the orchard?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I come to the airport, I come here, I get no television here, nothing. I just live like a, what is it? What do you call it?
King?
No, like a monk out here.
But it's by no means a solitary existence for John. Plans are now being made for the two adjacent villages to unite with his. Eleni is desperate to see Moutulas as she once remembered it.
I am always emotional. When I speak about my village, it's just me. And when I see this village going, it's like dying.
And so, in this tough economic climate, she and the surrounding communities are taking the power to change things back into their own hands. They hope it will attract visitors keen to embrace a back-to-basics approach to life and rediscover the old Cypriot values that 10 years ago also brought John back home.
Everybody is very proud. I am very attached to the village. My young girl once told me, Dad, when you talk about the village, your eyes sparkle. So that was it. I think that made it for me. I thought, she's so right.
John Papadouris, the saviour of his childhood village in Cyprus. And that's all we've got time for this week, I'm afraid. But next week we're in Bhutan, which long ago adopted a hefty tourism tariff of $250 a day in peak season. We investigate how the system works.
You get all your meals, you get all your, you get your transport covered, your non-alcoholic beverages, the guide services and accommodations. So it's when you look at it from that point of view, $250 per night is not a huge amount of money.
Until then, don't forget you can check out all our travels at our website, bbc.com/fasttrack, and you can follow the links there to our Facebook, Twitter and Pinterest feeds. But until next time, from me, Fiona Foster, and the rest of the Fast Track team, wherever your travels take you next, have a great trip. Bye-bye.